All right, welcome class of 2021 parents to the university counseling meeting. Thank you so much for being here today, both in person and online. We have a lot to cover today. First, we will talk about the good news. We will talk about important deadlines, divisions of responsibility, finances, of course, and also how you can help your son or daughter. If you don't know me by now, my name is Elisa. I am your child's university counselor. I have been at ISV since 2018. This is my third year. Um, as you probably know, I am currently located in the US, but intend to return to Vietnam just as soon as the borders reopen, hopefully sooner than later. So you may be wondering how many days until the ISV application deadline. We have 1 month and 23 days, so that is rapidly approaching. In case that raises your stress level, it's important to think about how stressed you are about your child's applications. You'll notice that if your stress level is over here, you're probably not motivated enough to do a whole lot. On the other hand, if your stress level is too high, you're overwhelmed and not able to do a lot either. So the optimal level of stress is right in the middle, between too low, too high. It's just right. You're motivated, but you're not overwhelmed. So if that's how you're feeling, imagine how your child is feeling right now about their applications. So I want to piggyback on what Mr. Collin talked about, and that is how we sometimes perceive your son or daughter's experience during the IB program. We often think that it's pretty simple. You can choose two of the above. They can get good grades, they can get enough sleep, or they can get social life. They can't have all three, but they can have two. The reality is, however, they're juggling many, many things. They're juggling friends, their classes, their school, part-time jobs, their family responsibilities, homework, sleep, of course, their hobbies, food, staying fit and healthy, their extracurricular activities, resume builders, volunteering, all of the CAS assignments, maybe their romantic life. So they have all of these things and they try to do everything until stress takes over and things start slipping and you end up crying in your bed, deciding to do none of it and just watch TV to escape to somewhere else. And of course, let's add applications to the mix because now they're in grade 12. But not only that, of course, they are in the year 2020 and they have to also deal with the coronavirus. So it's important to remember what your child is experiencing, has been experiencing for the last year and a half, but also currently as they embark on their applications. So it's now time for some good news. Your children are very well prepared university applicants. We have been working for a long time to prepare them for all parts of their applications. They are on track for completing their applications ahead of time. ISV strategically designs our deadlines so that students submit their applications well in advance of other students around the world, which really gives them an advantage for not only their acceptance rates, but also for scholarships. Each student has been enabled to create a balanced shortlist. They have been prepared to complete all parts of the application by themselves. and they are fully prepared for the ISV internal application deadline if they have been doing what I've asked them to do along the way. And of course, that application deadline is November 15th. So what your child should have already done by now. They should have already taken their IELTS and gotten a good score. For students who intend to apply to the USA, they should have taken their ACT or SAT at least once and perhaps signed up for the October exam. You probably know that this year, many universities are test optional, which means that they do not require SAT or ACT exams this year due to COVID-19. However, your children are very fortunate to be in Vietnam where they were able to take exams, so it will benefit them greatly if they have taken that. Of course, they have decided and told me whether they will apply early. They have asked teachers for letters of recommendation. They have chosen 5 to 7 priorities for universities. That may have changed between SLC 1 and 2. You will find out in their SLC. They have thoroughly researched universities and chosen their preliminary shortlists. They have written their essays, including personal statements, college essays, supplemental essays. Most likely they have written at least one draft and they are still in progress. They have also created their CV resume and also activity list. So looking ahead at some important application dates. Your SLC number 2 will be between this Saturday and 3 Saturdays from now. I ask that students have their final shortlists completed by the 9th of October. Of course, if your child's SLC is on the 10th of October, then I ask them to have that by the 12th of October. If students decide to change their list of universities after this date, ISV will not be able to support that particular application. We have this date set in place so that students can be well prepared. And if they change that, then it makes it very, very difficult. If your child has told me in August that they want to apply early, then the 15th of October is the early application deadline. Coming up to the 9th of November, there is an optional deadline to submit applications to me. I will then check for completion and I will look to see if anything looks funny. I will not go through a fine-tooth comb and look so closely, but I will just give it an overall inspection. Of course, this is optional, but students in the past have benefited greatly from having somebody look it over. The 11th through the 13th of November is the application sessions. I'll be talking about that in a few minutes, but this is basically when students will have the opportunity to meet with me just like you are online to ask any questions. I'll be available all day long where they can really focus on completing their applications. And then, of course, the 15th of November is the round 2 regular application deadline. Application assistance will cease after this deadline so that students can focus on the most important part of their application, of their education, which is, of course, their IB diploma. At the end of November, they will be taking their mock exams, which are critical for their future. So we want them to be wrapped up with their application so they can begin to focus much more on the rest of their school. Before the winter holiday, ISV will send supporting documents like their transcripts that we'll talk about in just a moment. And the 15th of January is the round 3 deadlines in case they have a few extra universities to apply to. The deadline for Japan, Korea, Germany, Singapore, and some other country varies. So I will be working with your son or daughter to get their applications in for the appropriate deadline for these countries. All right, which student do you think is happiest with their application results? We have the student who rarely meets with me. We have the student who waits till the last minute, so maybe on November 12th, they decide to meet with me. And of course, we have the student who takes initiative to meet with me many times throughout grade 12 about their applications. You can probably guess it's not A, B, but it is C. Historically, students who take the time to meet with me about their essays, about questions, about strategies and approaches tend to be very, very happy with their application results. It is not too late. If your child is A or B, they can turn in to student C. So I encourage you to encourage them to meet with me. The way that they do that is through Maya Learning. They can enter my name and then they can find slots that are available. Of course, if you would like to meet with me, this is the best way to schedule a time. You can talk to your son or daughter about a time that is convenient for you, and then we can meet together by Zoom. Some things that students need to do before submitting their applications. Essays tend to be the most stressful and time-consuming part of their application. Of course, this is true for the US, but it's also true for other countries as well. Again, most likely they have completed their first drafts already, but they still need a lot of work. So I encourage them to set up meetings with me about their drafts. Of course, they need to finalize all of their other application documents, including the application itself. They will be meeting with me many times in class. They can also meet with me individually when requested. So again, please encourage your son or daughter to take advantage of the time that I have available. You are probably very familiar with the fact that I encourage your students to really stretch themselves and aim very high. I also encourage them to have a backup plan. So again, you're very familiar with having a balanced shortlist, so I won't touch on this, but I will go over some parachute choices. So if your child has on their shortlist many reach and far reach universities, I will give parachute or likely suggestions. Keep in mind that likely schools are more likely to give your children scholarships because they really want to attract students like yours. Last year, there was a very big trend of students applying to other countries and in the end deciding to stay in Vietnam because of the current pandemic situation. If your child has not included a school in Vietnam or Asia in their shortlist, I strongly encourage them to do so, just because we can't predict the future. And in the end, the class of 2020 was very happy to have their backup plan being in Vietnam. So coming up, you will have your child's student-led conference number 2. Your child will present changes to intended major, course, or career. We went over this in the SLC 1. Sometimes this has changed between June and now. They will also present every university on their shortlist, their chances of acceptance, all of the application requirements, and how they compare to their competitors, also the costs of each university. The intention of the student-led conference number 2 is really so that you have a very clear picture of where your son or daughter is intending to apply and what their post-secondary plan is. We really encourage you to give feedback and to have conversations after this, just to make sure that you're on the same page and in agreement with everything. So just a reminder that I have not actually gotten students into any universities. And of course, the reason why is because the students do the work themselves. With that in mind, I would like to introduce you to the three parties. Of course, we have the counselor, that's me. We have the parent, that's you. And we have the most important part of this party, and that is the student. So bear with me. We're going to go through some divisions of responsibilities. That means we'll talk about who does what part of the application. If you are there in person, there should be a document with your native language. And if you are online, that will be given to you in a link. First, we will talk about the student's role. Of course, they are the most important part, and they are expected to do the most work on their applications because it is their life. So their job is to thoroughly research universities and complete their applications. They must be aware of deadlines. That is absolutely critical. Some have been better than others so far. If you have received a lot of emails from me detailing what they still need to complete, they will need more help with this. Of course, they have already spoken with me and you honestly and openly about their goals. They have met with university admissions officers at ISV when we were able to host universities last year and in the fall of 2019. Currently, they are doing that virtually, but there are still many, many chances to meet with university admissions officers. Of course, they are expected to advocate for themselves. So when there are questions, they should not direct them to me. They should direct them directly to the university. That will really show the university that they are keenly interested in the universities they want to apply to. And it will also show that they are very responsible and independent. They are to research universities based on their priorities that they have decided. They are to research the admissions procedures, everything they need to do in order to apply. They are to evaluate their academic profile compared to other applicants that have been admitted in the past and use that to predict their chances of acceptance. They are to sign up for and take appropriate exams, including SAT, ACT, TOEFL, IELTS. They are to choose a shortlist and present it in a student-led conference coming up. They are to create a brag sheet all about themselves and give that to their teachers when asking for letters of recommendation. They are to write all the parts of their application themselves, keep a record of all of their online applications and logins, of course, fill in university applications, send exams to universities themselves, pay for and submit applications, keep copies of all records of submission and receipts. There are times when students think that they have submitted something, but actually they haven't. So it's important that they take screenshots and keep records that they have so they can prove that they have completed this. Of course, they also need to submit a document request form for every university. I will be going over this in just a moment. and of course, help you fill out relevant financial documents. What is my role? My role is to empower students. So of course, I remind them of upcoming deadlines. Ultimately, though, it's their responsibility to be on top of those. I coordinate university representative visits and fairs and make sure that students are aware of this information. I teach them how to advocate for themselves. I also teach them each part of an application so that they can complete it themselves. And I will help them with all parts of the applications. Of course, I will help them with their first draft. After that, they need to take initiative and pursue help. I help them to evaluate their chances of acceptance. I will give likely suggestions if they are aiming a little too high. I will monitor their overall application progress and see if they are on track. And of course, if there are any problems, I will liaise between students and universities when necessary. It's very common that if there's a problem, I will step in and make sure that there's an understanding and will help in any way that I can. I will maintain accurate transcripts that will be sent to universities. That is the record of all of their grades from grades 9 through 12. I will coordinate ISV teachers of letters of recommendation. Again, I will make sure that even though your child is not allowed to see the letter of recommendation, I make sure that they are overall very positive and will only help your child's application chances. Of course, I write counselor letters of recommendation. I will review applications if asked by the deadline. That deadline is November 9th. And I will submit supporting application documents based on their document request form. What is your role? Of course, your main job is finances and general support. So I encourage you to help with management of deadlines. Please remind your child of upcoming deadlines. Ultimately, though, we know that it's their responsibility. Also, it's important to openly discuss any financial or personal restrictions. This is something that I've asked all families to do with their children in grade 11 in semester 2. You have all helped with the family application questionnaire, which is vital for their application process. You are able to complete an optional parent brag sheet. You will help gather financial information and prepare financial documents I'll be talking about in a moment. Of course, you will give access to your credit card to pay for application and test sending fees. Proofread applications. And let me know if there are any changes to your family or financial situation. Of course, with COVID, there are many changes with everybody. So please do keep me informed. All right, so let's look at some applications. Most of our children will be applying to these 4 main countries, but there are also applications to many other countries. Right now, we're going to be focusing on the UK and North America. So on the back of that form, there is the student responsibility within the application process. So of course, applications consist of personal information, their extracurricular activity list, self-reported past and current classes, self-reported exam scores, essays or personal statement, CV or resume, and they are asked to submit them, of course. So they'll submit the application and they will pay electronically. Colin spoke about sending IB exams, so that will be done through ISV in the spring. So they don't need to worry about that quite yet, but that is going to be their responsibility. They also are asked to send all non-school exams, including SAT, ACT, TOEFL, directly. This is not something that ISV is capable of. We are not able to do that, so we cannot do that. We will not do that. That is something your child must do. Also, it's very important to schedule any interview or auditions if requested. If there is an optional interview, I strongly encourage your child to take that because it will really demonstrate interest and that they want to attend that university, which will probably increase their chances of acceptance. And they must complete a document request form for each university and give that to me. Under normal circumstances, this is what the document request form looks like. It's a form that they give to me directly. Of course, I am not able to be there in person, so I've created a Google form that will make it easier for everybody that will ask the same information. This is how students will be able to request transcripts and other important documents to be sent to universities. If students do not do this, then their applications are often incomplete and will not be considered. So this is a critical part of their application process. So what is my job? Of course, my job is to send documents based on the document request form that students have requested. So typically that includes transcripts. If your son or daughter attended another school, I will send those transcripts as well, so long as your child has brought them for us to scan. Transcripts are normally sent as soon as your child applies. That's called the initial transcript. They are also sent after grade 12 semester 1 teacher grades are given. And of course, they're sent at the end of the year when grade 12 semester 2 grades have been given. I will also send any predicted DP grades, scanned IGCSE certificates, scanned IELTS certificates if they have brought that to me by the end of September. That is the absolute latest day. Also letters of recommendation, as we talked about. So for the USA, that typically includes 2 teachers and also 1 from me. For the UK, that includes a combined reference from the students' teachers, all wrapped up into 1 reference. Also includes a lot of other things like school reports, counselor report, school profile. This doesn't mean much to your son or daughter, but this does mean a lot to the university, and it's an important part of the application process. And of course, what is your responsibility? So again, with finances. So there will be application fees, exam sending fees, financial forms. That includes a bank statement showing the total tuition and fees for 1 year, less any scholarships or bursaries that your child receives. It also includes university financial forms. For USA applicants, this includes the ISV or CSS profile. It's important to remember that some universities ask for this at the time of the application, and others ask for it during the visa application. I apologize that there's no way of knowing until they apply, or rather, every university is different. There's no pattern necessarily. So I encourage you just to be prepared. The financial guarantee form is a form from the university that shows who is responsible for your child. So normally this will be you or their mother or father, and that would be listed here. And it's basically says, yes, I am responsible for my child and I will pay for them to attend. This is also the form to ask for financial aid. So if your son or daughter intends to apply for any kind of financial aid, this will help to show that you have the need to receive financial aid. This particular form is a paper form that your child will fill out by hand, and this goes directly to the university that asks for it. Not all universities do, however. Similarly, this is a CSS profile. I encourage you and your child to fill this out together at the same time because they ask for very similar information. This application opens very soon. This is an online portal where you will fill in information about your financial situation. If you have any questions about this, please do make an appointment with me, and I'm more than happy to go through some of these questions with you. So specific to the USA, this can be a little bit confusing, but there's a difference between something called need blind and need aware. So for need blind universities, they ignore completely the student's ability to pay for university. Need aware, on the other hand, they do consider the student's ability to pay. Need blind colleges can meet all of the students' demonstrated need. On the other hand, need aware, they need to consider their budget when admitting students, particularly the last 10 to 20%. That is part of the reason why we apply to universities so early, so that your children are in the first batch of students and they have a higher chance of getting accepted and of getting scholarships. You can imagine that the need blind colleges are extremely selective and competitive because they are meeting so much need and giving so much money for students to attend. These tend to be the Ivy Leagues, very famous, very selective, very competitive universities. Need-aware colleges, of course, can also be very competitive when students show very high demonstrated need. The more that they can show that they can afford to pay, the higher chance of acceptance that they will have, because again, these universities need to consider their budget. It's also important to remember that full scholarships, what that actually means often is that they will meet demonstrated need. It doesn't mean that you will pay nothing. Often it just means that they will meet all of the need. So if you are able to pay 10,000 US dollars, that's what you will be expected to pay, even if they get a full scholarship. Now, it is nice to remember, if we look at the universities that offered scholarships to the class of 2020, you will be quite pleased. Overall, they were offered 974,000 US dollars. That is nearly $1 million for one class. That's incredible. So it is nice to know that there are universities that really love our students and want them to attend so much that they give a lot of scholarships. All right, so just to review, here are some dates to help your child manage. So again, we have the student-led conference coming up. You have received the date for your time slot already. So again, once this is complete, you can have a conversation about their final shortlist so that they can enter that by the 9th of October. Application sessions are going to be between the 11th and 13th of November. The round 2 or regular deadline is the 15th. Round 3 deadline is the 15th of January. And of course, these countries have their own deadlines. It's also important to be aware that if the applications are not submitted by the ISV deadlines, we may not be able to send application documents. So please make sure that they are submitted on time. So what are application sessions? These are held in November. Of course, the 11th of November is the parent-teacher conference. So we encourage your child to go into school to meet with your teacher if that's requested. However, they can spend the rest of the time meeting with me. And then of course, on the 12th through the 13th of November, there's no school. So they will be able to meet with me all day online. Again, they will enter Zoom and wait in the waiting room while I meet with other students, and they will be, I will meet with them in the order that they entered the waiting room. This is optional, but I highly recommend it because it's 1 week until the deadlines, and it's time to really focus in on their applications. And of course, I can answer any questions that they have. There are always last-minute questions that are difficult to answer. So it's a great thing to take advantage of. And looking forward to the spring. So after they have submitted their applications between January and March, that's when the admissions results will come in. Typically they're sent by email. The 1st of April is when universities must have told the students whether they are accepted or not. In the month of April, of course, is the university counseling exit interview. I can help them if they have any questions or are not able to decide where they want to attend. But by the 1st of May, they need to have decided where they want to attend. And then, of course, they have their IB exams. So looking at, give me one moment, we have somebody who has joined. All right. So looking ahead at deadlines around the world, not just in the countries that I described. So we're looking at the IB diploma program. Of course, the exams are in May, and the results will be released in July, like Colin said. For Canada, USA, and UK, we have the application deadlines. Decisions are released, and April 1st is when they must tell our students whether they are accepted or not. Students must decide by May 1st whether they will attend or not. Compare that to Australia, where students are able to apply for semester 2, which begins in July. Of course, they apply with their predicted grades. If they apply with their predicted grades, they must be 2 to 3 band scores higher than the minimum grade, and then they can begin in July. We do not encourage this because they have a very, very short time after some very stressful and time-consuming exams to prepare for life in a new country. Instead, for Australia and New Zealand, we encourage students to take the gap semester for semester 1 start. and apply with their exam results to begin in February, when Australian and New Zealand students will also be beginning. Looking at Germany and Singapore, they do not consider applications until the IB exams are released. So therefore, if your child is applying to these countries, again, they must say yes or no to Canadian and US universities before they will even know whether they have been accepted. So it's a little bit tricky, and you'll have to work together to decide on a plan that works for you. Hong Kong and Japan are also a little bit complicated. Application deadlines vary by university. Typically, students must decide 1 month after results arrive. So if they are accepted, they must say yes or no. That means that they may not know whether they have been accepted to these other countries. So again, it's important to work with your child and think very carefully about this. All right. We want to make sure that our ISV students are very prepared before they go and arrive at university. So we make sure to offer some pre-departure topics, including saying thank you to the teachers who have written them letters of recommendation and have helped them along in their journey. Creating a LinkedIn profile to stay in touch with ISV and their classmates. Dealing with homesickness and culture shock. Budgeting, managing finances, I know that one's very important. Learning how to be with roommates and have healthy relationships, balancing social life with academics, laundry and cooking. All right. And how you can help your child. So please attend your student-led conference. I'm unable to change the dates, so please be sure to attend at the time that you have been allotted. Help decide on their final shortlist, help them manage deadlines, and provide support with applications. Some resources are available to you. Of course, we have Maya Learning, where you can use that to be aware of your child's plans and career plans. Also have a university counseling website that has many resources, including a parent page that will help you if you haven't explored that yet. There are many, many resources that we add daily. And of course, you can contact me with any questions or concerns that you have. I'm always available by email, or you can set up an appointment by Zoom. I'm going to end with this. What is the answer to almost every university counseling question? You may remember that, of course, it depends. The reason why is because every child has very different circumstances, very different desires, very different backgrounds. So most likely your child has a very unique answer. Nevertheless, I would like to give you the chance to ask any questions that you have that might be general in nature or would benefit other families as well. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Elisa. Do we have any questions from the floor here in school? From our Vietnamese contingent, no questions? From our Korean contingent, do we have any questions for Ms. Elisa? Ms. Cho, online, do we have any questions? Okay, Ms. Elisa, we have no questions from anywhere, so
all right.
Thank you very much for your very informative presentation.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
We'll be sending the videos of these, I think, to parents in the next few days, along with the material that we have said.
Yes.
With that, I shall switch off the screen here in school, and I wish everybody a safe evening and rest of the week. Goodbye.